dreams you should chase.
Okay, fair.
Right? Like I want to be the best surfer. That's fun. Like dreams are fun when you don't beat yourself up on accomplishing it. When you champion yourself on trying to accomplish it. And then you being realistic about it. But go ahead, what was your thought?
No, part of that was you said if people were doing what they love and weren't as focused on money, they'd probably be a lot happier.
Yes.
I want to spend a couple minutes on something that you've talked about before, but to someone listening who's like, okay, I want that. I can learn to detach from the need to be as good as I might perceive someone to be, which you might be completely wrong. On the figuring out what you should be doing front, have you seen people make that discovery of like, that's the thing that I should be doing? And are there things they did to get there?
Yes, I've seen it a lot because of what I talk about and how many DMs and emails I read for the last 15 years. So far, it all happens from extremes.
Okay.
Horrible divorce. Now, whomever the wife or the husband is in like a financially, challenged situation, like life's different, and they're forced into doing something, and they just happen to be consuming mind and other positioning of like, if you're gonna do this, do something you like, and all of a sudden they have a business making kites. This is a real one, and it was just really therapy because there was so much pain, and kites, I remember this email vividly. Kites were a big part of their childhood and they enjoyed, and it was really nasty. It was very challenging. The father that flew kites with this person passed, and then 6 months later divorce, and then really in a challenging spot. And this person decided to follow the passion route versus getting a job like everyone told them. And she sold kites on Etsy, and 4 years later was selling $400,000 a year in kites. And so that, or the complete other side, someone just hearing the message in the right way and realizing in their early 20s, you have nothing but capacity for risk, and decided to run into it, which is and I've seen a lot of versions, just being very humble and aware that they are in a financial family that allows them to go full risk for passion. Just having a parachute and a landing route. The reverse, so pissed at their often Asian or immigrant or Indian parents of I'm not gonna be a doctor or engineer, you fucking assholes, I'm going for it. So in extremes. I've seen it in extremes. I'm hoping to get those edges into the middle a little more. I'm hoping someone right now who's just to me, the dream state is the person who's listening now that's making $210 and living a $250 lifestyle. $210,000 a year. They live a $250,000 lifestyle, and they realize that if they lived a $100,000 lifestyle, it would take the golden handcuffs off of them to maybe take the leap and go for it. So they're obsessed with cooking, and they want their own little bakery, but they don't have any savings because, again, their apartment's too expensive, their car's too expensive, their vacations are too expensive, their nights out are too expensive. They order bagels on Seamless and Postmates. Do you know how many people buy $30 bagels currently, Chris? Lots.
I want to not know.
Well, but we know this. And this is more like the Uber thing that we learned years ago. People will pay for convenience at scale. There are people right now who are buying $30 bagels and don't even realize it, right? They're buying an $8 bagel on Postmates or Seamless or Uber Eats, but then there's the surcharge, the charge, the delivery fee. They kind of are blindly on the tip because they want to be a good person. You kind of wake up and it's a $28 bagel. And that same person is buying a $28 bagel because they make $210,000 a year, but deep down they're they hate being in this law firm more than life. Literally can't wait to 5 or 6 o'clock every day. Truly can't. Yet want to own a bakery. Yet want to start a podcast on Star Trek. Yet and I believe they can, but do they have the humility to move back in with their 50 or 60 or 70 or 80-year-old parents? Probably not. Do they have the humility to get a roommate? Probably not. Do they have the awareness to say, I should move out of New York and maybe move to a suburb of Wisconsin because I actually like the outdoors and my lifestyle there can afford it? Especially right now. I got one. I haven't thought about this until this exact microsecond. We are living right now in a world where a lot of companies will let you work remote. I've been talking about this whole quit your job, start your life by going humble. How about don't quit your job, ask for a move. And so you literally go from New York, LA, San Francisco, Dallas to literally lower cost, deep suburbs of those places for a lot less than living in Manhattan. Could you do that? And could you take those savings? Could you cut out the $30 bagel? Can you take one less vacation? Could you trade in the car you have now for a downgrade? And can you take all those savings on that 210? Now you're living a 130 lifestyle, right? And can you stack 30,000 in savings 3 years in a row to give you that $100,000 nest egg to go? That's a level of practicality around passion that I hope becomes a bigger norm.
My new hypothesis is that once you start doing the thing that you really like, you actually probably will care less about all these other things going on, right? 100%. If you hate your job, like, of course you're like, oh, I need these other things to make me happy. My friends have these things.
It's all in, all out.
Yeah.
Like when I work out, I eat better. If I don't work out in the morning, I eat worse. So it's an all in or all out. When you like what you do, the majority of your life, aka your job, well then all of a sudden you aren't spending $50 on cocktails after work to, deal with what's going on. You don't have 7 streaming services to escape what's going on. You don't find Band-Aids. You get, you don't find Band-Aids for the issue. And the issue is your relationship and your job. And figuring that out is massive.
I got 2 final things. One, yes. So you're all in on let's say you're all in on something, which I kind of am on this podcast. I found the thing that's me. It's once you love it so much, I know you have kids. How do you find this balance of I love what I'm doing? A part of me is I could spend every waking hour thinking about it, but I also love this other thing. I have these 2 big ambitions.
You want to mitigate regret. And anybody who has kids realizes you don't want to wake up when they're 20 and realize your relationship isn't strong and they don't want to see you anymore. And they were accustomed to living without you being in their lives, and it's devastating. And so I just think you're thoughtful. I think, look, there's no such thing as balance. There's your subjective opinion of balance.
Yeah.
Right? I love when people judge other people's work-life balance. You don't know their family. This goes back to a lot of things we talked about. So I think for every person here, be willing to adapt. I've changed and ebbed and flowed multiple times over the last 15 years on it. Oh, here, this, more there, less, weekend. I think everyone's got their own thing. I work very hard Monday through Friday, but I'm pretty checked out on weekends and holidays. And when I say pretty checked out, I'm checked out. Unless there's a super fire, right? And so other people may work 9 to 6 or 9 to 5 during the week, but they're also working on the weekend on their phone the whole time. Everyone plays it different. And by the way, you may go all in for 3 years on this podcast because there's a moment right now, right? Yeah. But then in 3 years, you may be wait a minute, I've done that, but look over here, these little ones are getting big, and wait a minute, that I'm worried. And so you can go all in there. People can find balance in extremes. You can't judge yourself on a day-to-day basis on these big issues. It's a bigger thing than that. Yeah. Look at all the people that reconcile with their relationships years later and have great. I have a friend who didn't speak to their father for 40 years, and now has had an incredible 5 years, and that's because they've leaned into forgiveness. I think it starts with forgiving yourself. Back to your question, there's a lot of parents right now who have 17-year-olds who are oh, too late. Not too late. There's never a bad day to start doing the right thing.
Yeah.
If you're 62 and you've never been good at health and wellness, good news. Tomorrow is a good idea to do it. If you have 18-year-old twins and you've worked on just your career for the last 18 years and you can sense they're about to go to college and they don't give a shit about you, they love you, but they're accustomed to not having you be a big part of their lives, good news. You could visit them every weekend at college. Probably a bad idea. They might not like that. But you could start today to put it in. If you are angry at your mother and you've got 20 years of resentment built up, good news. Today is the day you can start therapy. Today is the day you can go have a candorous conversation that is built on compassion for your mom that gets some of the poison out. There is never a bad day to start doing the right things that are most upsetting you. For you and I, practicality grows as you get older, you have responsibilities. When you're this age, it really doesn't even make sense to do the things that we grew up thinking we should tell our kids. It actually doesn't make sense. if you think about it, to not try to do the most high risk thing in your 20s. That's the time where they could all, literally, they're of the age where you could like all live together in one tiny place, right? Yep. You have no rent in that scenario. This is the age where you can eat horrible food for like $2 and like your body's like cool, no problem. Like this is the age when you, like it's been a big passion of mine, which is like we have to get out of this like, oh now you're 22, you're a big boy now and you should have a job. 22 to 30 should be when people take the biggest risks of their lives. They're not affecting anybody else. Right?
My son is doing that. He's almost 30, and he had 2 degrees in music and environmental study.
Yes.
The EPL closed down when he graduated in 2015.
Yes.
Went to look for a job and said he was overqualified. So he didn't get the job. He was very upset.
Yeah.
So for a full year he did nothing. He just stayed home and just this year. And he said, thank you for at least giving me a roof.
Of course.
Stuff. That he went to volunteer at Knowles, the marching band stuff. That he did EMT for like 5 years volunteering.
Yes.
So he was not bringing any money in.
Yes.
But he was happy in life. So now he decided he worked at the hospital as a script.
Yes.
And he's learning so much medical things. So he plans to go to PA. But in the meantime, he saves every penny. He goes out and he always said, Mom, you make the best food, so why should I buy something that tastes so good? So he's home now, and we're happy he's home. My daughter, she worked at UConn and she was in New York during the pandemic. So she moved back home. She started selling.
So you're the happiest lady in the world.
My kids are home now and they're saving money.
Love it. So you noticed I said that on stage. I think about that a lot. Some people are lucky where they love their parents and their parents love having them, and like, cool, as long as you're not, it's all judgment. You guys know you're in the thick of it at this age. Like it's all judgment. Judgment for your parents, teachers, your friends. All you're thinking about, like you don't even realize you're thinking about it. All you're really thinking about is what people are thinking about you. Like it's just real. And you know, building that strength to get to a place of like, wait a minute, what do I think? Not to posture, not to impress anybody but myself. And so that's hard, that's a journey. But yeah, I think the risk, like especially film, like this is 20 to 30 is when you do go to LA and, you know, make $5 an hour or $20 an hour, and in California, $20 an hour and wait tables and like fucking fight. DM every producer, DM every studio, DM every, like just fight for it. Yeah. Because you can. Because then you get married often, then you have children, you start worrying about other things.
But you said too, like social media. I mean, you all know how to use it. And this opportunity is right there for them. Why aren't making content and just getting it out there?
You're one video away.
Yeah.
But the other thing is where it gets daunting is every other kid knows how to do it too.
Right.
And they're like, Gary, there's too much competition. I'm like, then you shouldn't win. Right. Like I love when people are like, Gary, there's too much people posting. I'm like, okay. Like that's how life works. Like if you're not good enough and you're not good at making movies, you're not gonna make movies.
Right.
But not trying to, then you're 40, that's right, then you're 47 working some job, thinking back to when you were 20 and be like, why the fuck didn't I go for it? You know, Steve, I think for me, it was a journey of losing a lot as a child. You know, I was an immigrant, I didn't speak the language, so it was hard for me to, you know, make friends when I first got to America. Then I was a bad student, so all my teachers said, no, you're a failure, bad, push against. I wasn't, you know, after about 3rd or 4th grade, it was clear to me that I was not remarkable at sports. So there wasn't that thing that a lot of kids rely on. So I basically lived a life with a lot of adversity and a lot of no. You know, my parents didn't buy me things. Mom, I want Nintendo. No. You know, like my life was about no. And so it was very easy once I became an adult to be comfortable in no. For a lot of you, my children included, no was, you were in the business of yes, you know, and in that became the vulnerability because no seemed scary, foreign. So I think the biggest way for you or anybody else at a more advanced stage of not being a child anymore is getting into the practice of losing and doing no's, trying things that are hard to you, doing things that require no. People need to have a relationship with no. And that is only something that either you are serendipitously growing up with and or something that you manufacture for yourself when you get older by putting yourself in uncomfortable positions so that you become more comfortable with rejection. It's ironic you asked that question. Literally, my Instagram post that I snuck in while I was doing the interview with Emma, as I multitask, you might have saw me looking down at some point. Literally this post that I just posted is that people are too addicted to positive reinforcement. You're smart, you're pretty, that's awesome. Once you believe that, you become susceptible to negative reinforcement. So Niall, the reason I'm able to deal with pushback and no is actually when Emma introduces me and says all those nice things, I don't believe them. I don't know how else to say it. When I hear that I'm a 5-time New York Times bestseller, that's funny to me because I failed all my English and writing classes. When I hear, when Emma says something like, you've actually made a dent in this global advertising, this, Niall, you were with us very early on. That's funny. We were like a ragtag group of 50 people that just were sitting in an office, right? You know this. So for me, I don't get high on my accomplishments, which allows me to not get low on when I'm dealing with negativity. I just keep it very zen, very in the middle. Like, I'm aware of what I've got going on and where it's going. And I'm also aware that I'm 44 years old, which means I have a lot of time to build on this. And it can end up being in a very crazy place, not financially, on impact. I'm well known at this point and I'm just starting. So I know that kind of, God willing, with health and all that, my destiny at some level is for some pretty big bridges, but that will never make me think that I'm better than somebody or I'm greater than, which allows me to then deal with the negativity that comes along with that much notoriety. And I like that. I like that I don't get too high and I don't get too low.
That is a difficult thing to do. You're constantly thinking about what the others are saying, even though they're on the sidelines. They're not playing the game, you're still in it.
Sometimes that other is your brother that you looked up to. Sometimes that other is your mom who came to the country and did everything for. Sometimes that other is like somebody you really fuck with and love. Yeah. But you still can't do it.
So how do you get to a place where, and you talked about like emotional and mental practice, how do you get to a place where you can start cultivating the things to stop the fear?
Practice. I'll give you an example. In her scenario, my scenario too. My mom is I love her. She's like, I don't want to disappoint her. I'm like, okay, do something right now that will disappoint her. Not like something crazy. Don't go murder someone. I'm talking like if your mom's like you got to either go talk to her or do something. You got to practice feeling it. This is why I'm scared of A students. Right. If you're an A student your whole life, you fear a B.
It could be suicidal to these kids.
It's because we're not having the right conversations. This is why I'm motivated. As if a B, I wish I got a B. I was, in high school, I was ranked 243 out of 254.
Damn.
Straight F student.
I was a D student, D. I got A's in gym. The only 4 A's I got in high school were gym. I tend to like the concept of fresh eyes can innovate. So, and I'm also a bad student. So once I decided I wanted to start an advertising consulting company, which is what we really called it at first, I just said to AJ, hey, we understand startup. I understand small business. We know nothing about Fortune 500. We're going to be doing this for 80 years. Let's figure it out. People are starting to reach out to me because I have a lot of Twitter followers. ESPN and Pepsi just paid me $5,000 for an hour of consulting. That seems like a ton of money. Let's figure this out. And so we came in very naive. It was about community management at first. Brands were not replying on social media. Brands didn't have accounts. The NHL, I was watching the Rangers game the other night and I saw the @NHL Twitter thing as a promo and I was like, AJ's laptop created that account. My brother's laptop created @NHL for Twitter. It was that early for social in 2009. My relationship was naivete. When we started doing media and creative from day one underneath the umbrella, I didn't realize that Madison Avenue had split it to separate companies 20 years earlier. I'd never heard of Nielsen brand lift studies. I didn't know about Cannes Lions. I didn't know about Ad Age. I'd never heard about a firm. I never heard about Martin Sorrell. I didn't know who David Ogilvy was. When I tell you nothing, I was a poor student who was 100% obsessed with wine from the age of 17 and to build his dad's business. And my interest lied in sports and music and Jersey. And I was interviewing someone for a very senior role last night. This kid literally grew up idolizing marketing, right? Like he was like, I read this book and Fallon this and DDB and Ogilvy, and I was like this, and I thought it was the neatest. I was like, this is so rad. Like that wasn't my journey. I didn't know anything, but I knew that marketing had built my dad's business, and I knew that social was going to win, and I knew that big companies believed in something I didn't know, but I had a sense that it wasn't right? And we got in, and very quickly, early meeting at Campbell's and Trident and Mondelez, Cadbury, I was like, oh, okay. And then like things started happening, which was, I realized television was God. And and that was weird to me because the internet was cruising. And then, it took me about 5 or 6 years to calibrate the industry. And what I mean by that is like, I'm like, oh, okay, like how you measure media like matters. Like they might not even believe in programmatic digital ads. They might not believe in television, but GRPs and impressions and MMMs and MMAs is like why they do it, because they're a corporation and they have to conform to that. Oh, creative, like this is all a facade. It's all about awards and headlines, and it's just people's subjective opinions, and they don't really validate them. And just like you just start like really, but to the point of creativity, the creative is the variable of success. I believe the Super Bowl is the best ad in marketing in the world. Best Buy, underpriced, 100 million Americans will consume it. It's what we do. But your upside is based on how good the ad is. The process to the ad is something I have challenging DNA towards, but the punchline of the concept is right. And so frequency and reach, I agree in that. The problem is I believe in actualized reach, not potential reach. So a GRP means nothing to me because I know it's fake.
Yeah.
It's fucking fake. Like, and so same with the social media view, by the way. I have no love towards social media other than I think it's underpriced attention. And I think the industry hasn't calibrated it yet. But, my relationship knew nothing, believed in my thesis. So I wasn't scared to speak my mind, which of course, was a different narrative. And I'm empathetic to why the industry's like, especially the way I roll, tons of confidence, tons of conviction, tons of passion. And I'm willing to like challenge the status quo. I didn't whine. I just come from 15 years of challenging the wine industry, which on a good day makes the advertising industry seem easy. Like you want to talk about pretentiousness, you want to talk about ideology, you want to talk about focusing on the past. I would literally taste wine that I knew was below par, and the winemaker would say, the owner would say to me, my grandfather built this. I'm like, your grandfather didn't make this wine. This wine you just made, like, had to deal with the fact that it rained and you picked the grapes too late.
Yeah.
When
you're at that Ad Age event that I saw you at this week, do you feel at home?
Yes and no. Yes, from the standpoint, I'll tell you about the Ad Age event. So I left early, and I left early because I had some business stuff and family stuff, not for any other reason. Some people hit me up, they're like, oh, why'd you leave? I was like, I wasn't leaving because I'm like, I came because I love being part of this industry. I'll tell you what really threw me off. I can't believe how disrespectful the industry is to the industry. I was talking to my tables. We had 2 tables for Vayner. I was very upset. Like, genuinely. I literally said to one of my industries, I'm like, this industry really has a lot of work to do. I'm like, we were at the main industry event and we are not even staying quiet out of respect. Like, there was just no respect for the winners. I was really upset. I didn't say a damn word while those people were on stage talking about thank you for it. I was shocked. I'd never been. We won a bunch of good stuff last year, but I wasn't able to come. I don't recall why, family or travel, that was already locked in. And I said to my COO, I'm like, because Mark Yunkin, he actually accepted Warless. I'm like, was it like this last year? He goes, yeah. He goes, I was nervous to like give the speech before I got here because you weren't here. And I was like, fuck, I can't do what he does. And he goes, but then I was like not nervous at all because I realized nobody's paying attention to anything. So I did not feel at home from the standpoint of it reinforced to me the thing I continue to want to challenge our industry to do, which is we can be nicer and better to each other.
Yeah, everyone's waiting their turn for their moment and not giving a shit about anyone else's moment. At that event specifically, which is some of it is just the programming. It's too many people. You got people who haven't seen each other in a long time. They're trying to catch up while someone is on stage trying to say something profound.
I'll be honest with you. I fully disagree with you with all due respect. We had a full hour beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm involved in a lot of industries. You know this. I've got my hat on a lot of things. This industry needs to look at itself directly in the face based on what I saw at the gala last week. To not have the cordialness, to not have the respect, to not have the empathy and the compassion towards each other, for when someone's getting an award, to be quiet for 4 seconds and let them thank their teams, I was on the ground shocked.
What is the most memorably fucked up reaction you've ever elicited from a client?
It was by not wearing, early in VaynerMedia, we went into a meeting and the gentleman saw that I was wearing jeans and a hoodie and he viscerally delivered, "Thanks for dressing up."
Man, now if you dressed up, you would look like a total asshole.
Well, that's the wildest part of the story. There's two other wild parts. We won the business and he was an early investor in Resi because we became so close after that meeting. Because for a different podcast, I'll explain how aggressive I was in response, not directly then, but later in the presentation. So again, that goes back to compassion and empathy. I could have been shut down and I could have met his negativity with negativity. I chose not to, and it's led to a very fruitful relationship. I actually think, which is unusual by standards of the last 2 decades, I think almost no one here is going to be surprised about the disruption in the next 5 years, because I think the aggressiveness of how big the technology and movement of AI is, I'd be shocked if people here would be surprised that literally everything is in play to be disrupted given the nature of how large this innovation is. I think this moment that I think we're in is a little bit more similar to the late 90s, early 2000s, when it was obvious if you were paying attention or in a room like this with the kind of people that are in this room that this internet thing was really going to disrupt everything. I think the question becomes timing. When I hear the 5-year question, it's not what's gonna be disrupted, the answer is everything. It's in what pattern, right? Bookstores were just really unlucky first. And then people that owned medallions on cabs 15, 20 years later. So I think for a lot of us in this room, it's an interesting time to navigate our decisions and our opportunity costs and our investments and what we want to get into, because there's just a lot going on. Not only the acceleration of technologies that we've been waiting for or aware of. There's many people here. I remember 4 or 5 years ago looking at a lot of AI companies, and even with my slightly solid, somewhat dangerous understanding of technology, I realized half of them were really just APIs being put together and were bozo, or maybe on a good day some ML stuff, but not really there. And then here we are, and this is the year where you're really seeing stuff and you're like, this is what we were talking about 6, 7 years ago. So I think, look, just things I think everyone should be thinking about here. I was born in the former Soviet Union. There's a lot to that, but I think one of the things that it reminds me of is like people in the 50s, 60s, and 70s around the world didn't go to all the places around the world. Like if you were an American in 1972, like you weren't going to Yugoslavia. And I think we have a major rise of nationalism and geopolitics and BRICS and the US dollar and this. And so I think another thing that will become more clear over the next 5 years is like the world's changing in front of us, and that's gonna impact the way we make investing decisions and life decisions. So I guess to answer your question, I think everything is in play, and that makes it harder or more exciting depending on where everyone here is in their cycle. I'm not really that obsessed or overly emotional about the concept of social media in the way that I think maybe some would think if they've even spent a second paying attention to what I'm up to. I'm obsessed and focused on the concept of where attention is. So if I started my marketing firm in the late 90s, we would have been an email marketing, Google AdWords company. right? You know, it's actually really fun visually. I'm seeing two of the more handsome men in the room, Tim Armstrong and Ben Lear. One was very prolific in email and one was very prolific in Google Ads. And that would have been my firm in 2000 because I knew that was underpriced attention. For some of the OGs in this room, in 1998, Wine Library, my dad's liquor store, had 150,000 people on its email newsletter and had 91.3% open rates. When Ben started Thrillist, there was no chance he could achieve that because the medium of consumer behavior had shifted and marketers like myself had ruined email for other people and they could never achieve those numbers. Google AdWords, when they came out, I bought every wine term, people forget, but they were 5 cents floor for about 8 months or so before 10 cents became the floor. And literally I owned every word from wine itself to Silver Oak to Chateau Lafite. And I was able to build a very large business for my dad with very little capital because I was able to understand where the underpriced attention was. And I was able to understand how to fill that underpriced attention with the creative, whether that was the copywriting back then. Today, the underpriced attention is Facebook Reels. Right this second, as we sit here right this second, scaled underpriced attention to market in America and many parts of the world sits on Facebook Reels. The amount of people talking about Facebook Reels is like 7. And so,
just to clarify, when you say Facebook Reels, you mean Instagram Reels?
I sure don't.
Just clarifying. I knew that, of course.
I sent a company-wide email the other day, which I rarely do, but I'm like, I need everybody to get focused on Facebook Reels immediately. Literally half my company emailed me back. They're like, I don't even have Facebook because I have so many people under 26. And literally, it was quite enjoyable to reply back to them like, you know how you've been shitting on everyone for not knowing TikTok? Well, now they're gonna shit on you. And so, you know, I think for me, what do I think about the next 10 years? I think it'd be stunning if we didn't have a decentralized social network at scale in 10 years. I think that's an elephant in the room that will be really interesting to see. I think, you know, I think with AI and deep fake and all the stuff that we're about to deal with, I think decentralized servers, Web3, is about to really start showing people its value, improving provenance. I think we're all very aware of people's cynicism and politics that come along with centralized social networks. So even with Blue Sky and what Jack's up to, like, I think it'd be shocking if in 10 years we don't have a decentralized social network that's successful. I'd be surprised if 2 or 3 more Snap or TikToks didn't come along. I think I view social networks kind of like I view very successful TV shows like Seinfeld or, you know, SNL, which is having a long run. Like, there are gonna be platforms that come out that have 7, 10, 12-year runs, but then like nightlife, like a club or a restaurant can only stay so hot for so long because the next generation kind of wants their own place. So I think when I hear that question, I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see another emerge because Gen Alpha is gonna need their spot and they're gonna make fun of TikTok the way the TikTok generation made fun of Instagram, the way the Instagram generation made fun of Facebook. So I think there'll be 2 to 3 other places, and in the first 24 to 48 months of that platform, there'll be an enormous opportunity for every person in this room, regardless of what they want to achieve. At that point, people here may want to run for office, raise capital for a nonprofit, start a new business, build a personal brand, whatever it may be. In that 24 to 48 months, there'll be an opportunity to outflank. And I think what continues to happen in my professional life, the Fortune 500 advertising landscape, is the biggest brands in the world that spend the most money are incredibly slow because they run on fake reports. And so they don't know how to justify the ROI of new platforms. That will continue to be the arbitrage until that world changes, and I don't see that changing very quickly. And so that's where a lot of opportunity for all of us continues to be, and so those are some of the nuances I expect. Spotify's biddable product where you can just literally record on your memos a radio ad and place it on Spotify's free product is a crazy underpriced attention execution at scale. Influencers can be a crazy place where you waste money, but it can be the greatest place to buy underpriced. Even traditional mediums, outdoor billboards, when you don't buy them on contract, you buy them remnant when they're available for 2 months in between 2 contracts, are a remarkable arbitrage on getting attention for what you want versus what you pay for. So, you know, I think the more this room can think about day trading attention, That this is not a set it and forget it. This is not it's the way it is. It's a constant moving variable. I think that can service people well, because at the end of the day, regardless of what anyone is doing in this room, the one thing I'm sure of that connects everyone is you're trying to find mediums to let people know about it so they do the thing you want them to do. Whether you throw a conference, whether you make videos, like the punchline of everything is nothing that anyone here wants to accomplish is achievable without other people knowing about it and acting on it. And so to me, what was clear 15 years ago was technology was going to commoditize a whole lot of things except the ability to be a contemporary communicator, and that whomever was best at being a contemporary communicator at scale would have a lot of leverage. And that's why I've been eating shit for 13 years building an agency, because it's really just a front for what I'm up to, which is world domination.